Hi, I'm Jan Johnson. It has certainly been a pleasure going through this professionalism and ethics class with you this semester. This is my overview of my current ministry and counseling setting. As I've mentioned in some previous postings, my current setting is primarily working in one of our community housing locations here in our area, in our community. This opportunity opened up for me shortly after I took mission of the church at UGST, and it has certainly been a blessing. On Monday evenings, we offer a program for children at the community center in each housing facility. It lasts about 30 minutes. We bring the children to the community center, we feed them a light meal, and we teach them a short lesson. The children range in age from kindergarten through middle school, and sometimes first freshman or sophomore in high school, depending on the student. Through those relationships with those children, as we've begun to build them week after week, we've also been able to establish relationships with the mothers. I've been able to establish relationships with several of the mothers. Most of those women are single mothers that have school-aged children in the home. Some of them have males living in the home, others of them do not. They range in age from 25 to, say, 40, in that age range. Many of these mothers have difficult, sometimes even intermittent relationships with their immediate family members. So they often feel like they don't have any support system. Transportation is often an issue for these families, for these mothers. Vehicles are expensive. Many of the women do not have access to a vehicle. So that makes holding jobs, getting to appointments, getting other places difficult. As a result, I try to help these women get to those appointments and get to their jobs when needed, and they will often ask me for a ride somewhere. When I'm with these women, they will often tell me about their lives, their growing up, their personal issues. Mostly I listen to them with reflective questioning. As they express themselves, I pray with them. I introduce God and the church to them, and I try more to understand and express compassion than to diagnose or try and fix their longstanding family problems. As much as possible, I teach Bible studies, and I work to connect these women with God and the church. That's my primary goal, and to establish relationships with them personally. I also try to connect them with needed community services when there's a need. Depending on whether I'm taking these women to appointments and whether I'm waiting with them, whether I'm teaching them Bible studies, I can work anywhere from a few hours a week to 8 hours a week in this area, along with my other responsibilities. Now, at this time, regarding the ethical introduction, this time all of my ministry work is done in the context of Christian friendship and relationship rather than formal counseling. As I mentioned, in all cases, my introduction to the mothers that lead these families is through their children's participation in our children's programs, on Monday nights, or at the church. When I first meet these women, it's always in the context of those events. I introduce myself as being from Apostolic Church. I make sure that they know that I am running the Monday night program at the facility and that I know their children and I work with their children. The conversations I have with the women tend to be natural, casual conversations about their children, church, school, etc. And as a result, the women primarily understand me to be a Christian and a teacher from the church. I do not, under any circumstances, ever present myself to these mothers as a professional counselor or as a church counselor in any manner. I do, however, work to connect these women and their families to the church where these resources are available. And if any of these mothers express serious concerns that need the assistance of a counselor, I will direct them to our church counselor or to an appropriate community resource if needed. Because my ministry is currently a discipling ministry rather than a counseling ministry, I do not provide these women with an informed consent agreement. To do so would stifle the relationship that I'm hoping to grow. They wouldn't really understand why I was doing that. However, there is a possibility that in the future, I may have reason to engage in a more formal counseling sessions with individuals that I meet in my community work, which I hope to continue expanding, particularly after I'm done with Urshan. Accordingly, I have created an informed consent agreement, which is attached to this posting. The document describes my background, including that the counseling will align with biblical values, describes the counseling process, the goals of counseling, Because I anticipate that any future counseling will be associated with the church, I indicate that no fees will be charged because the church doesn't charge fees for counseling. It also contains a confidentiality and HIPAA agreement and an appointment section describing how appointments would go and requesting cancellation as much ahead of as possible. Regarding some areas of ethical concern, one area of ethical concern that has become clear to me through this class is my need for a supervisor. Since I'm primarily functioning in the roles of discipler and providing pastoral care for women inside and outside the church, I really did not realize that I needed a supervisor for dealing with issues and concerns that would arise. However, as I've worked with these women, I've been exposed to many of their personal concerns. I observe how they function as mothers, how they work with their children, and deal with a variety of issues. So obviously ethical concerns and issues beyond my limited experience can certainly arise in any of those areas. And the ability to have consultation and receive guidance from a more experienced individual regarding those issues and concerns is certainly essential. At this point, my experience is just too limited to correctly judge everything that might arise. As a result, I have recently made arrangements to place myself under the supervision of our church counselor, and I'll address that more fully in a moment. Another ethical concern that has become clear to me through this course is my need for continuing additional ongoing training beyond my Urshan education. As I mentioned, my experience level is limited. I certainly recognize it as such, and it's essential and ethically required that I do not attempt to provide care beyond my expertise. So I have plans to seek out additional training once I am done with my Urshan degree. I will be looking at into the clinical pastoral education courses or units. Whatever units of that I can complete will be of assistance to me in all the things I do, I'm sure. I would also like to take hospice training and volunteer as a hospice. Again, that provides information on how to talk to people, how to react in situations. I'm also planning on continuing to learn more about the services in our area so that I can better connect women with the services they need in our community. And I'm also going to be on the alert for other training opportunities as they arise so that I can continue to get ongoing training and continue to develop my skills and my knowledge. And importantly, when issues do arise that I do not have the training for or experience to address, I will see the guidance of my supervisor or make referrals as appropriate. Now, as I've described, the work that I'm doing is more discipleship and outreach-based work. The main function of what I do is building relationships and helping individuals become acquainted with God and with our church. And since I'm not currently providing formal counseling or even church-based lay counseling, I do not keep records of my interactions with these mothers or their families. However, I have given some thought to what might be appropriate for me to do in these circumstances. I am interested in receiving your guidance on this topic. And hearing what ideas you might have about what I should be keeping records on for just these casual discipleship-based conversations that I have. I'd love to hear your thoughts in the peer review if you have any. And finally, the name of my supervisor. The person that I've asked to serve as my supervisor is our church counselor. Her name is Allison Robertson. Sister Robertson currently serves in our church in a variety of ways. She earned a master's in clinical psychology from Madonna University while living in Michigan. And after that, accomplishing that degree, she was employed as a practicing psychologist in Michigan once she completed the degree. She told me that her title during that time was limited licensed psychologist since she was working with a master's degree rather than a PhD. About 8 years ago, she married her husband, Garrett, who is one of our church members, and moved to Ohio. Brother and Sister Robertson now together serve as our youth pastors. Now, once moving to Ohio and serving in that role as youth pastor, Sister Allison has not acquired an Ohio license, but she still does serve as our church counselor. In addition to providing counseling for all of the students, she provides counseling within the church for any individual that has a mental health concern. The ministry staff will refer individuals to her upon occasion when they're working with someone and they realize they have a need for some counseling. Also, individuals will approach her upon occasion as needed. She told me she makes referrals to appropriate Christian counseling or community counseling agencies in our area when she realizes someone needs longer-term care than what she can provide, which is she provides limited care for a period of just a few sessions. Sister Allison has agreed to serve as my supervisor and has already assisted me with the work I'm doing, and several times I've brought issues to her. So that is my overview. I thank you, and I'll be looking forward to listening to yours.